Hey, everybody, welcome to the Mindfulness in Politics Project, your weekly podcast that helps you deal with the stress and anxiety of working in politics and media. Josh, this week we're discussing the challenge of dealing with intrusive thoughts.
Yeah, and unlike some of the concepts we've explored previously, this one affects literally 100% of people. You may not have put it in the terms mentally before of intrusive thoughts, but we all know what this is. These are these unwanted, involuntary thoughts that just keep replaying on a loop, even though you don't want them. They're not particularly helpful. And in fact, they're causing you a lot of stress. So it can be something like really fixating on that thing that worked that's not going well that you just need to change and you can't. But it can also be something as parochial as did I leave the oven on? Even though you checked it 5 times, you didn't leave the oven on, or just those weird things that pop into your head, replaying a conversation with your spouse or a friend that just went off the rails, and you can't stop thinking about it, even though thinking about it is going to do absolutely nothing to change it.
Yeah, so we want to discuss different ways of dealing with intrusive thoughts. One is this notion that a thought is just a thought. It is a cloud in the sky. It is not you, that there is distance between who you are and the thought that pops into your mind.
Essentially what we're saying is, we have thoughts all the time, and the vast majority of the time we're not aware that they're happening. We're just totally caught. It's as if there's a train and we are not focused every moment that we're on the train about the fact that we're on the train. We're just kind of off to the races, and there it is. And that can be really problematic because that is really the source of why we lack control or the ability to do anything about problematic thoughts. And when we can step back a little bit and be aware of the mental processes that are happening in our brain, aware of the fact that these thoughts are coming and going, that is when we can start to actually be able to do something about them. And so that's really what we're talking about when we create distance with our thoughts.
And, scientists say we have about 60,000 thoughts a day. So that's just a lot of mental noise going on in our brains. We can treat those thoughts just like clouds in the sky, that it pops into our head. If it's a charged thought, it will have some kind of connection to our body, or we'll feel it in our body. But we don't have to engage with it. We can just let it pass on, let it move on, and try to really refocus our energy elsewhere.
Yeah, and the core piece of wisdom here, which is not only embedded in mindfulness, but is found in a whole lot of different spiritual traditions, is of impermanence. Everything in our lives arises and passes, and frankly, does not stay the same. That's true of our life. We're born, eventually we will die. It's true of every circumstance we're in, every place that we find ourselves, everything that happens during the day. And it's also true of our thoughts. Now, sometimes that's a huge bummer because there are things that are enjoyable that we want to last forever, but they don't. And the flip side of that is there are things that are painful, uncomfortable, or distressing to us, and they too will eventually go away. It's that old phrase of "this too shall pass." And on the one hand, we all know that, it's pretty obvious, but we sort of forget that as well. And when we have these thoughts that seem to be recurring and intrusive and won't go away, it's helpful to keep in mind that actually they will go away and that we don't need to get fixated on. In fact, the less fixated we are, the more quickly they'll go away.
Yeah. The other question here that I find helpful when I'm faced with an intrusive thought, and the thought won't go away despite my really trying to treat it as just another cloud in the sky, because some thoughts are very sticky, right? And they might go away briefly if we refocus our attention, but then they come right back, is to ask the question of, what am I believing right now? What belief is anchoring the thought, the troubling thought that I'm having? Oftentimes, they're beliefs about self worth, or beliefs about, everyone is out to get me. And beliefs are really important because they shape our worldview. And we know from research, there's the famous placebo effect research, that if you believe that you're taking a medicine that will make your pain go away, you actually feel less pain. Or if you believe that everyone in the world is out to get you, then that's what you're going to continue seeing and finding in the world because that's what your brain is really trained to see. We formed beliefs when we were children in our family structure. As we were coming of age, we formed all kinds of different beliefs about the world. And while those beliefs may be true to us and to our experience, they may not be the full reality. And they may not be beliefs that are serving us today. Something that was useful for us to believe as a kid or in our family structure may not be useful today. And so, this really slow practice of questioning your beliefs and whether those beliefs are serving you today is a process where you really chip away at what may have once been helpful, but may now actually be holding you back.
Yeah, it's such a good point. And Igor, you talk about dropping that question of what am I believing underneath this into the merry-go-round of our thoughts to kind of arrest it for a second. It's a question and approach that the meditation teacher Tara Brach has really emphasized. But I think, there can be a lot of different beliefs that are underpinning our thoughts, but I think one of the commonalities frequently is a belief that our thoughts are predictive, right? That because we're having a certain thought, that means that the thing we're afraid of is likely to come true, or is going to come true, or at least that there's a possibility of it. Now that may or may not be true. The thing that we are worried about could in fact happen, but whether or not it's going to happen is completely untethered to whether or not we are ruminating about it or the fact that the thought occurs to us. And so, kind of, in terms of almost a logical analysis of things that we see in the world and how much mileage we give to the possibility that it's something we need to really worry about. We have to sort of create that distance where we say, the fact that I'm going on and on about this does not make it any more likely to be true. And frankly, the fact that I'm worrying about it isn't making it any less likely that it's going to come true, or reducing the potential negative impact if it does.
Yeah, that's such a great point. I mean, all the research in this, and we'll link to some of it on our Substack, finds that we are just really bad at predicting things. You can look at it in the political world, like who could have predicted the way our politics would have really fundamentally changed in the last 10, 15 years? Very few people. But you can also look at it in the interpersonal world. I think there's a study, and I'll try to find it and link to it, that finds that we can only effectively predict what our partner is thinking about 20% of the time. That means 80% of the time, the person we are closest to, we actually have no idea. So, knowing that, Josh, to your point, it gives us a certain degree of freedom, right? And should give us a certain degree of lightness that, yes, maybe things will go down this bad, dark road that we're imagining. Um, but it's also highly likely that that won't be the case.
Yeah, it is. And I think the other thing that's helpful, at least for me, is to step back and think about, why is this happening in the first place? Because oftentimes we feel that our worrying is productive. Like, if I just game everything out, if I really focus on this and make sure that I'm not missing anything, that I'm not, letting things sort of disappear from my radar, that gives me more ability to control it, to prevent negative outcomes, or whatever it is. And frankly, that's just not the case, and it's not backed up by any kind of research. There's a lot of different theories that psychologists have for why these intrusive thoughts come. Our brains, our neurons are firing a million miles a minute, and some of this could just be kind of mental noise that just kind of keeps us going and going and going. There's also the threat response system that we've talked about a bunch of times on our podcast before, of how our nervous system recognizes a potential threat and then amps itself up to try to make sure it's prepared to respond to it. And frankly, In the modern era where the actual threats we're perceiving are very different than, is a tiger going to come out of the woods and eat you like it would have been maybe 5,000 years ago? Our nervous systems are actually just not that good at detecting what is a legitimate threat and what is not. And so some of this is kind of our nervous system's threat detection system misfiring and getting us amped up when we don't need to be. So in and of itself, knowing those things isn't going to stop it, but it's one more tool that can help create a bit of distance when we once again have more awareness of the actual thought process that's happening, and create that distance can be really useful.
And the other thing to highlight here, Josh, is that all of this is a practice and all of this takes time, right? Because if you're someone who has been on autopilot for a long time, if you've let your intrusive thoughts really take hold of you, control you, shape the way you see the world, as you begin the practice of trying to create distance between you and your thoughts and just say to yourself, that's just a thought and try to not inject it with additional energy. Or if you decide to deal with intrusive thought by really questioning, what am I believing right now? What is underneath this sticky, intrusive thought that won't go away? And you start to interrogate whether or not this is a belief that still serves you. That is such a healthy practice, a healthy exercise, but it takes time because our brains are really wired to go down very well woven neural pathways. And for that to change, and the good news is that it can change, is that you slowly have to use all of these different tools and practices to break yourself out of that well worn cycle. So it's something that I'm working on. Josh, I know it's something that you're working on. And I invite all of you, our listeners and readers, to slowly try to create that distance between the thoughts that are bothering you, yourself, and to chip away at the beliefs and really interrogate the beliefs that may be underlining them.
So, as Igor said, the good news is you can change these neural pathways. You can do something about this. I'll give you the bad news too. This isn't going to make intrusive thoughts permanently go away. That's not a thing in the way that our minds works, but that's okay, right? That's not really the goal. And that's not what we need to be able to deal with these in a way that is helpful and frankly reduces the amount of discomfort and suffering and negativity that they provoke. So have some patience with yourself as you're working on this. Have some compassion for yourself that this is something that's part of the human experience. It's not going to totally go away, but through all of these various practices that we've been exploring through the Mindfulness in Politics project, there are ways that you can get a better handle and create some more opportunities to really deal with the inevitable stressors that we're all facing and will make you a little bit more resilient in your life. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again soon.